Shalom, brothers and sisters, and non-believers alike. Happy to have you. Welcome to the channel. So I'm super excited because today is day 2 of the War of Beliefs series. And today we are going to be talking about Buddhism. So if you're a believer, then welcome. Here we are to get edified and to learn how to witness to Buddhists. And if you are Buddhist, then welcome as well, and happy to have you, and hopefully can learn something today about Christianity. Okay, so what we're going to do is the same basic format. Just talk about the belief system, how it contrasts with Christianity, and we're going to dive into some of the philosophy and things like that. As I said in my first video, well, actually, just to kind of preface this, Buddhism is very similar to Hinduism. So I did Hinduism first for a reason. And there are some concepts such as reincarnation and karma that I'm not going to go into great detail about simply because I covered them in the first video. So this is going to focus solely on more of the differences in Buddhism. But you can please, go check out the day 1 video, and it goes into more detail about those things. Okay, so we're going to start by sharing the screen with you here. And let me pull this up for you on my PowerPoint. Okay, so day 2, welcome. Talking about Buddhism. Okay, so like I said, we're going to do a little introduction, get into the beliefs, and I'll open it up to some questions and conversation. So just to start off, as I said, Buddhism is kind of like the cousin of Hinduism. So there are a lot of the same concepts, as I said, like reincarnation and karma, that I'm, again, not going to refute again. Please see the other video. But it does expound upon those concepts. Now, Buddhism is the 4th largest religion in the world, with about 613 million practicing Buddhists. And that doesn't even include the people who follow it more in the West as kind of just a philosophy. So it is a lot of people, right? There's often symbolized by the 8-pointed wheel, or by, you'll notice this is a popular one as well, the yin and the yang, and you'll see this a lot. And you'll see this is the Dharma wheel, and we'll talk a little bit about it. But it's mostly popular in places like China, Thailand, Sri Lanka, other Mid and East Asian countries. Their scriptures include the Pali Canon, and we're going to talk about that, but it is a practice, okay? So a lot of people today have picked up the concept of meditation and incense burning, but again, this is for them a spiritual practice, and so you are partaking in that when you do meditate and do these things. Buddhism basically means to follow Buddha, or the enlightened one, and it's based on myths surrounding the life of Siddhartha Gautama. As I said, so it's extremely popular in those countries. But it's important to know that none of Buddha's teachings were ever written down, okay? None of his disciples ever wrote anything. So the first few manuscripts appeared about 400 to 500 years after his death, and some of the manuscripts in that canon were even 1,000 years later. So most of the historians are not even able to say with certainty that the teachings attributed to Buddha ever even came from him, okay? So that's really important to note. And so, as I said, the name Buddhism means to follow Buddha, or the enlightened one, follows the supposed teachings, although no historian really can tell you because nobody wrote them down, but from the North Indian prince Siddhartha Gautama. It's kind of ironic, right? Because historically, we're not even sure if these principles of Buddhism is what he ever taught or even practiced, okay? Because, again, no one to write them. Most of it is based on myths and legends that appeared 500 to 1,000 years post-death. There's no primary sources to look at in order to even attempt to validate the legends that surround him. Now, if you compare this with the Gospels have 4 eyewitness accounts, which have slight differences, which is good, because if they were exactly the same, there would be an issue, right? Then you would think, okay, maybe it's a lie if it's exactly the same, someone just copying it. But because of the slight discrepancy, the slight changes, it actually proves its authenticity. And you have 4 that we're going to look at. And again, there's so much more historical evidence for the existence of Jesus Christ and accounts of his miracles than there is for Buddhism, that you can't even attempt to compare the two. So an example of those valid eyewitness accounts I'm going to show you is the same event written in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So as I said, the validity, no valid, okay. Here we go. So in each of these, if you read Matthew 16:24-26, Mark 8:34-37, Luke 9:23-25, John 12:25, I'm going to read to you each of these witness accounts of the same event, and you'll see how there's very, very slight differences, but it proves the authenticity of the teaching, okay? So the first one says, "Then said Jesus unto his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" Okay, so we know what Jesus is talking about here, what it means to be called to discipleship. Pick up your cross, follow me, right? Now, if you read in Mark 8:34-37, you're going to see it's the same thing, but very, very small differences. It says, "And when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever will save his life shall lose it, but whoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" Okay, you can see it a third account, Luke 9:23-24, "And he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. For what is a man advantaged if he gain the whole world and lose himself, or be cast away? For whosoever shall be ashamed of me and my words, of him shall the Son of Man be ashamed." And then just a little snippet of it in John 12:25, "He that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in the world shall keep it unto eternal life." So this is a perfect example of how you can prove the authenticity of the gospel accounts, of the witness accounts of his disciples, whereas no such evidence exists for Buddhist teachings, okay? Now, it's important to state that Buddhism has had a huge impact on the New Age movement, represented here in this photo, which is really kind of an amalgam of Hindu and Buddhist beliefs, okay? But we're going to get into why they're so similar. And basically, like I said earlier, that Buddhism's kind of like Hinduism's cousin. And you can see like a lot of the same symbology and things like that. But again, it's had this huge impact. In some practices, it is a form of atheism that has rejected older theistic beliefs of a personal God that controlled the destiny of human souls, which was the original thought, which I would say is a little closer to the truth, right? We know that we believe as Christians that God is a personal God, and that he does, have part to do in our destiny. And so in order to understand the basic teachings and where, Siddhartha Gautama got his ideas from, it's important to know, who he was, okay? Now, he was a Hindu guru and a prince from northern India, okay? So that's why Buddhism takes so much from Hinduism, because of it's following this path, or following the path of what they would say was the Buddha, okay? So that's why you're going to see so many similarities. He had a wife and a child. He was very sheltered growing up, and he decided to finally go out into the world, okay? Now, remember from the first video that the caste system was still in play, right? That system of hierarchy, that system of, you had the untouchables at the bottom, that because of the law of karma, according to them, that basically they kind of deserved to be where they were, right? So he went out 4 different times and saw these untouchables for the first time. Remember, he was a prince. He's used to luxury. He's used to all this stuff. And now for the first time, he's seeing this part of the world. He's seeing sick people, hungry people, and so on. And so he basically concluded that life was full of suffering. Okay. On one such trip, he saw a poor man smiling and concluded that desire was what made us suffer. And he didn't understand how a poor man could still be happy, right? How he was able to see all these things and was still able to be happy. Now, the conclusion is a logical fallacy. It's called false dilemma or false dichotomy. So basically, it means like all of Buddhist philosophy plays on the argument that desire brings suffering. Now, this is just simply not true, because I desire to be around family and friends, right? This actually brings people happiness, fellowshipping with one another. If you read in Genesis, it says that when God created man, it says it was not good that he should be alone. We crave fellowship, we crave friendship. So, and all of us desire in some way to impact the world. Now, that's a good desire, right? It's going to bring that drive to accomplish something. Now, basically, this fallacy is a black and white fallacy. Either something is or it isn't, okay? And this says that desire is bad because it brings suffering. But the only way, according to Buddhists, to eradicate this suffering is to eradicate desire. And it's a secular logic, okay? Because even when Siddhartha followed his own, I guess, principles accordingly, he was still miserable. It actually said that he was more miserable. And you can even see that with when we talked about Gandhi, with the same similar type of concept in Hinduism. He was still very, very miserable. He still, by denying so much of himself, it was to the point of bringing more pain and more suffering. Neither of them were ever fully released of what they claimed to be released of. Now, we have to understand that what he did was he left his wife and child to be a beggar in the street. And he did this in an attempt to, quote unquote, right, purify his soul. But in doing this, like I said, he became more miserable. He came up with this idea of the middle way. So basically, it means that, you have to find a balance between pleasure and pain, wealth and poverty. And what's interesting, and it makes so much sense as to why places like, China fell to communism, was because it sounds somewhat like the beginning of this socialist ideology, right? Find a middle way. We need a middle, wealth is bad, but poverty is bad. So let's do something in the middle, right? Now, Siddhartha was very dissatisfied, again, with the life that he had created for himself. And interestingly, he never claimed to be a god or asked to be worshipped. In fact, Southern Asian Buddhists worship Buddha, while most North Asian Buddhists are more atheistic, right? It's more of the philosophy for them. Buddhism provides no real answer for justice, defining what is morally correct and so on, yet it begs and asks you to follow what is right, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But the Bible gives us the 10 Commandments as a source to view, what is sin, what is morally correct, and what is not. And God promises to bring justice on those who work evil and to vindicate the righteous. So there is a sense of balance here. There's a sense of justice. Now, Siddhartha rejected these theistic teachings because he did not agree with judgment, the existence of evil, right? Or really the existence of a just and holy God. This belief in reincarnation, again, taken from the Hindu belief, as he was a Hindu prince. He was actually a Hindu his entire life, as well as karma. Again, view the first video on Hinduism for a deeper rebuttal of these theories. But, he rejected a lot of things like the caste system and the Vedas, I believe it was, and kind of just created his own version of his own philosophies, his own Hinduism. Now, Buddhism follows this philosophy called that there are 4 noble truths in life, okay? That life is full of suffering. Suffering is caused by craving. Suffering ceases when craving ceases, and it is achieved by following the eightfold path. Now, Christianity shows us that suffering actually leads to obedience. And through suffering, we are able to produce compassion for one another. If you have never suffered or endured anything in life, you cannot grow. It is impossible, okay? It also produces perseverance. Now, people suffer every single day, and it's not as a result of craving or wanting things. People that get sick, for example, right? It's a form of suffering. You get ill. what did you possibly want? All you want in that moment that you desire is to feel better, you know? So it's kind of like a circular logic. It's easy, you know, to take that view if you're a prince who had everything possible and had never seen a group of people who have not much. Okay. It's a very extreme view to take. Now, like I said, suffering is necessary. Okay. Romans 5:3-4 says, and not only so, but we glory in tribulation also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. Okay. Now we can look Hebrews 5:7-9, which says, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard in that he feared, though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. And being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that obey him. So we know that this is part of Christian life, you know, that we are called to a life of obedience as well. But as I said, you know, suffering in life, nobody wants to suffer. However, it does produce something in us, right? If we never suffer, we can never relate to others. We can never truly have compassion or empathy for other people unless we have experienced it ourselves. So yes, we think of it as being like it's a bad thing, I guess, right? But it's also something that is in the human experience completely necessary. Now, the Eightfold Path, this is what Buddhists follow. They say, you know, kind of like Hinduism, claiming that there are many paths to freedom, when in fact we believe that there is one path, and that is through Jesus Christ, because he paved the way for us. And so we just need to walk in his way, walk in obedience to him, and follow his teachings. But these include right view, right aspiration, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right contemplation, okay? But the question I ask here, because Buddhism doesn't offer any sense of right or wrong, who constitutes what is right? What is right to me in my mind may be wrong to somebody else, right? And so it goes off of that theory that, okay, well, we can keep going as long as we're on the same path. But human nature tells us differently, right? Humanity shows differently. We can't, what's right to you may be not right to me. And if we're following both in our mind what is right, we're not going to arrive to the same point, okay? And Christianity says that very clearly. So, you know, that's why we are told in Christianity to put on the mind of Christ, to become as Christ was. And in doing that, we follow the right path. We will have the right type of thinking, the right type of effort, the right livelihood, the right action, the right speech, the right intention, because it's not of ourselves, but it's of Jesus. And so it's impossible to do this with a bunch of different ways and different beliefs when there's really only one that was able to do this, okay? Now, Christianity is, again, you know, provides the answer for every single one of these. You know, we pick up our cross daily, as I read before in comparing the Gospels, where to pick up our cross, you know, we follow him, and you actually end up accomplishing these 8 things, right? But none of which occurs using human effort. Again, it is the supernatural inner working of the Holy Spirit, because this is impossible to do in human strength. Now, one of the most depressing of the Buddhist teachings is of self, okay? For them, yourself is of no personal significance. You are insignificant, and so is your life. Basically, it's an illusion. It doesn't matter. And for me, that's a terrible way to think, okay? Humans treat each other as though we are significant. You wouldn't give away, you know, your child for a rock. Why? Because your child has significance. Right? So does our family, our friends, our jobs, you know, these things in our life that are significant. So we all are craving for that significance, and that is not a bad thing, okay? To feel loved, to feel special in some way. Again, like I said, they believe life is an illusion for the Buddhists as it is for the Hindus, and they're trying to reach the state of nirvana, which is also non-existence. Why would you want to reach a state of non-existence? When he's at a place called heaven, where, you know, he says, I will wipe away every tear from their eye. There will be no more pain and sorrow. So suffering and all of that will be done away with, because, you know, that is what is in this earth. But there does exist a place that you get to only through Jesus Christ, right? And only for him providing that path for us. And in doing that, to cleanse us of our sins, to walk in his ways, to walk in righteousness. And we obtain a beautiful inheritance, right? We will one day inherit the earth. Okay. And it's just going to be beautiful. And it's something I would consider studying more about, you know, the new heaven and the new earth and things like that. Now, Sri Lanka is one of the most, and I said earlier, right, it was a heavily populated Buddhist region, okay? Understand that there are, for every 100,000 people, there are 35 suicides in Sri Lanka, okay? The suicide rate is high in a lot of East Asian countries. I know China had a huge suicide problem. And it's not hard to believe with this emphasis on low human value. If a human does not feel valuable, does not feel they have a purpose, what sense do they have for life? Okay. Christianity tells us that we have a purpose. Okay, and it aligns more closely with human nature. You know, we feel inside that we have a purpose, that we are called to do something. And so many of us are searching for what that thing is. You know, when you're a child, you don't have dreams of becoming nothing. You have dreams of becoming something, right? So, you know, our lives are significant. And we are given God-given talents and gifts that are meant to help us achieve whatever that purpose is. Now, Christians can tell you that this is always for God's glory, and it is, right? You don't have to truly discover your purpose. You don't truly discover your purpose in life until you seek God and he helps you to achieve it through that personal, intimate fellowship with him. Isaiah 43:7 says, even everyone that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. I have formed him, yea, I have made him. Genesis 1:27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. And there are some versions that say a future and a hope, okay? And what is the most beautiful thing to know is that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's Psalm 139:14. You know, you are no accident. And any philosophy that teaches that you are insignificant shows, why do you want to feel that way about yourself, right? You are significant, okay? And there is a God that loves you very much and is reaching out towards you in fellowship, in relationship. Now, Buddhism fails scientifically even, right? It has this eternal universe theory. Even scientists who believe in the Big Bang can tell you that there was a beginning, okay? And we know that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and mankind, okay? So Buddhism never addresses that. It never addresses ethics or morals. It's basically just focused on the self, keeping the self from any pain or suffering by reducing craving or trying to get rid of this concept of want. There's no real call to reach outside of self and help others. The end goal, again, is to really just extinguish desire. So the Dalai Lama, right, couldn't even follow his own philosophies, right? Because he has a desire to see the freedom of Tibet. That is a desire. That is a want. You can't have that craving to see that, to want that, if there's no significance in it. So again, like I said, he's a political activist, and this shows that form of desire, right, in the world. This vast contradiction to what is natural to the human being. Now, many people, and I don't understand this, but try to compare Jesus and Buddha as having similar teachings surrounding love and kindness. The biggest problem with this is Buddha is not Jesus whatsoever, okay? Jesus suffered and died to atone for the sins of the world so that we may be purified and be reconciled to the Father. Buddha made no such sacrifice. Though a few teachings may be, somewhat similar, okay, based in love, whatever. Again, like, it's just a poor attempt, like comparing Krishna and Jesus. It's the same thing, trying to compare him as this just new age philosophical teacher, which when we talk about new age, you'll see that that's what they're trying to do as well. But, Krishna and Buddha, neither one of them conquered death. Neither one of them rose from the dead or promised eternal life to its adherents, okay? Or willingly went there as an innocent person, as an innocent man. Siddhartha was not innocent, He had left behind his wife and child, his duty as a father. Okay. Now, again, we have to understand that, they never overcame death, never gained victory over the world, or provided this true path for salvation. Instead, they kind of came with these philosophies that created more confusions and contradictions, making it physically impossible for any human being to ever accomplish. Okay. Now I'm going to show you a testimony, and it's amazing because he talks about struggling with suicide, this same thing, and not being able to live up to these standards. And he was a Buddhist monk, and instead he had an encounter with Jesus Christ. So I'm going to play that for you. And unfortunately, the embedding wasn't working on this, so I'm going to have to do another share screen. So just bear with me one moment. And okay. So I'm going to play this testimony for you, and then I'll open it up to some questions and things like that. So here we go.
At a young age, Zach Bonchikhan found himself hanging around bad influences as a result of unresolved issues concerning his father.
I grew up without my dad. He left when I was pretty young, and throughout my life, I've always wondered why he left. I always had this feeling that it was my fault. So I started getting into the wrong crowd. I just had that didn't care mentality.
As insecurities took over and depression set in, Zach looked to drugs for the answer.
I started smoking weed at the age of 11 or 12, all the way to about last year, so it's 11 years. And on top of that, I was always partying, trying to fill this void, just trying to just flesh out reality. And so I was always partying every weekend, getting drunk. Then I was introduced to pills. That really was my escape. I was high almost every day, almost off of anything, really any narcotic I could find, Xanax, Adderall. I just had to have something.
Still void of peace, Zach turned to his family's religion of Buddhism, and even went as far as becoming a monk.
I became a monk, try to find inner peace, try to, overcome these things, and I only felt like I was going more down because I couldn't even live up to that expectation. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't succeed at anything I did. And so that was really discouraging, and it brought me deeper into depression.
Living as a Buddhist monk seemed to leave Zach worse off than before. Life had become too heavy for Zach to carry any longer.
And then one night I just, thought to myself, I'm just dead weight. So my mom hides her gun in her room. I'm not going to say where, but I went and grabbed it, and ran downstairs and locked my door, turned up the music, and tried to pull the trigger, but it just jammed. And I figured it was a sign somehow.
Zach had planned to commit suicide once more, but was caught by a friend who had stopped him in the act.
I was gonna hang myself, but he snuck through my window and found me, and then took the rope from me and just stayed with me that night and made sure I didn't do anything. And I just poured out to him, just like, man, I don't know why I can't do anything right in my life, why I am the way I am.
After some convincing, his friend had talked him into coming to youth service that next day.
The presence here was amazing. It was really good, but it was weird to me to see how much people cared. I was wondering where all this, excitement and love and stuff was coming from. Where these people worship this God so much, because I'm over here going through what I'm going through, and I just didn't believe in a God.
The words spoken that night had reached Zach in a way that nothing else had.
I was being touched. I felt really, really convicted, but in a good way. It reevaluated my life. And I went home, I cried. I didn't make it to 20 minutes of the service, but I went home and I cried, and something sparked in me that I somehow found a Bible in a Buddhist home. It was kind of ironic. And then I read through Psalms and Proverbs in one sitting, and I just got curious, what does this mean? Why do I feel the way I feel?
That following Sunday, Zach was back in church and gave his life to Christ.
I felt this, this push to come up on altar call. So I gave my life, and things have been great. Set free from drugs. I never went back. I actually found a big packet of pills, and I called my girlfriend, and I told her that I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I flushed them, and then God has taken me through so much now. Me and my girlfriend were living a sinful life, and we decided to separate. Try to focus on God, and now we're getting married, and we're both serving in the church, and it's amazing to be in an environment where people care and to feel the presence of God, to know what true love and true peace is. My name is Zach Batsakan, and this is my testimony.
Okay, so, all right, let me do it. Good. Okay, so yes, that is it on Buddhism. That is the video. If you have any questions, I can open it up now, or any just things that you want to kind of say, I'm more than welcome to put them in. And thank you so much for watching. It's so crazy. It's easy to see this one's heart and soul. Yeah, exactly. And that, I really liked his testimony a lot too, because it's very relatable, right? And in this series, what I'm trying to do is, find people that are coming out of their situation. So you hear it for yourself, right, from where they're coming from, because and they can speak for themselves, that testimony, a witness to the power of Christ, and to go and be able to preach to more people. But yes, thank you so much. So if you have any other questions, just please put them down in the comments. And if you want to maybe share that video, you can. I put the link in the description as well. Tomorrow is the next video 3 is going to be on New Age. So it's going to basically take Hinduism, Buddhism, and we're going to see how this is affecting this New Age movement, which so many people are a part of, and where the world is going with that. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and thank you for joining me on this, and look forward to see you guys tomorrow to talk about New Age. God bless you. Go forth in love, peace, boldness, and perseverance to preach the message of the gospel. Shalom and God bless you. Oh, wait. And if you are Buddhist and you're watching this and you want to learn a little bit more about salvation, I have another link in the description as well, to another video that I did that kind of talks about it. And again, please feel free to message me and we can have a conversation. Put a comment down and I'll reach out to you. All right. Thank you for watching. God bless you. Goodbye.